say, first off, props to you because it took me a second to realize. I'm like, so Mark kind of hit it on the spot when I got into the stream. I'm like, Mark kind of hit it in the spot. Didn't he say something like 38-28? And then you confirmed that. I'm like, yeah. You said 38-28, right?
Yes, sir.
And it ended up 40-28, so you weren't too far off.
Not too far. I'll take it.
To you.
Thank you.
To you. I also, so I got the system in place, and I'm in this like group with what was like 25 people. It's kind of fallen off a little bit to 19, but I got still a substantial like picks group. We go down the line, and we have 10 pick'em games, 5 against the spread, and 5 over-unders.
Okay.
And what's interesting, I'm doing so much better than everyone this week. But in pick'ems, I'm 4-5 this week, pending the Utah-Washington game, which doesn't look good for me right now, considering Washington's up 2 scores and driving. I mean, they're at the 45 right now, but they're moving the ball. So I could go 4-6 in pick'em, and I did so well in spread and then over/under, and still to be determined with Fresno State and UCLA, which is the other over/under I got. But right now I'm undefeated 4-0 over/under and 4-1 against the spread. That one miss was Ohio State by 1.5 points, so I'm a little bit salty about that. I was kind of like, Ohio State, do you want to just tack on a field goal here at the end of the game? Get me on the over.
Well, the way J.K. Dobbins ran that final carry, you think if they would have run the ball one more time, maybe they would have had a good shot to get it into the end zone. If you remember, Bash Gaming, the end of the national championship game against Oregon, they were up 35-20. They could have sat on the ball, but they ran it in with just a few seconds left on the clock. It looked like it might be a repeat in the same stadium, but they chose to sit on it.
Yeah. I was very impressed with TCU's wide receiving core.
Absolutely.
And it kind of showed up like Texas A&M. I think Sean Robinson also played good, but not to the level that Kellen Mond played against Clemson. So that and the offense for Ohio State was more potent, really, than Clemson's offense. So that's really what was the difference. And this kind of did have to me a little bit of a Texas A&M Clemson feel to it, except the fact that holy cow. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm watching this Utah and Washington game, and something just happened here. It was almost a fumble recovery big. Anyway, back to my point. Texas A&M, Clemson, it was just kind of one of those games that just the other team wouldn't go away, and you always felt like they had a chance until the very end when they made a play. The Ohio State's offense just made plays. It was a little bit different, but still kind of had that similar feel to how the teams were.
Okay. Very good. I don't have much of a response for that. I just think that the game, I think that the game generally went as many of us said, as I stated off the top, that TCU would make plays. They've got speed and athleticism all over the place, and that they would make plays in space. The Ohio State defensive front was so dominant. Not every play in, play out. They gave up plays, but when you have that much talent up front, you're going to make disruptive plays. And games like this are made by big mistakes and big explosive plays, and that's what we saw the defense take hold with the 2 enormous plays, the 2 touchdown plays out of the defensive front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned the big plays that they allowed to. What kind of got on my nerves, and I was just kind of like cringing about, was when they had that 93-yard touch on Darius Anderson, and that dude can fly.
Mm-hmm.
I have him on my Yahoo Fantasy College Football team. Didn't start him. Don't know why. That dude can straight up fly. And when they motioned over the wide receiver to stack the right side of the field from Sean Robinson perspective, right side of the field to 3 wide, everybody in the secondary shifted, which is fine, but I saw Malik Harrison shift from that right side on the linebacker because they're running a 4-man front nickel, and I saw Malik Harrison shift from that right side defensive perspective, right side towards the middle of the field, and it looked like he was supposed to be spying on Sean Robinson. And if you didn't have that dual threat capability of Sean Robinson, or at least not trying to contain him with Malik Harrison. That 93-yard run probably doesn't happen because Malik Harrison probably clogs up that hole on that right side. So that was definitely a good job by TCU's offensive play calling to notice that, look, we got this linebacker in a nickel who's overcommitting to the quarterback. Let's get this gap, which should be clogged up by a linebacker, and let's hit it for a big gain. And that's exactly what they did. That made a huge difference in that game. And that you got, me and other Buckeye fans around the nation sweating for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were a number of – yeah, go ahead, Bash.
Go on. I was just going to kind of transition to more Big Ten stuff, but you can make your point and then we can do that.
No, that's okay. I was just going to make some points about some crucial plays that happened or almost happened. Pass interference calls, but we could point to those in just about any game. So go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So more with the Big Ten, it's weaker than I expected, but some of the exposures of the high-end teams don't surprise me. What Wisconsin had problems with today, they had a little bit of problems with inexperience at wide receiver, and basically it wasn't like Hornibrook couldn't throw the ball. All that was really just happening was they didn't have the receiver experience. The route running wasn't fantastic. They weren't quite getting into space well enough. So it was really just Jonathan Taylor against a physical BYU team that, they aren't great by any, but they're much improved. BYU is. They took Cal to the wire. I don't think too low of Cal. I think Cal's not too terrible of a team. Definitely a bold team. And beat Arizona as well, and kind of setting that standard for containing Khalil Tate in that game. So this isn't too bad of a BYU team. They just kind of exposed the weaknesses of Wisconsin that I was pointing out all offseason, just thinking I didn't think it would happen against BYU, but they got Iowa here coming up. And they got to fix a lot of things, Wisconsin does, if they want to win that game, because it's in Kinnick Stadium, and that could possibly be for the West, because as bad as Wisconsin looked today and as inexperienced they looked on the outside at wide receiver, those are the two teams in the West that are going to be fighting for the spot. I picked Iowa to win the West in the preseason, and I just have that feeling continuing that Iowa defense is going to suffocate Wisconsin, and Nathan Stanley is going to make a couple big plays, and Torrin Young is also a really good running back to watch for Iowa. In other news in the Big Ten, everyone just disappointed today, other than, of course, Michigan taking care of business. Michigan State was idle. Penn State just took care of business, but if you look at the depth of the conference, it's seriously hurt. Like, we react to that Northwestern loss against Duke. You're like, okay, it's bad. They didn't score a lot. But Duke's not necessarily the worst team. Akron's not the worst team in the world either. They're 7-5, but it's Akron. And then, Nebraska at Troy, everyone's talking about this game as a possible upset in Lincoln. And you sleepwalk through that game. Like, you got to be aware when everyone's saying, look, this is a possible upset. This is a team last year who upset a top 25 team, whether you agree they should have been top 25 or not. They upset a college football playoff top 25 team. So you got to be aware of that. And the only thing that really didn't let me down was Purdue. Purdue played against Missouri kind of how I expected, a close one. I was back and forth on that. I ended up picking Purdue in the end. I thought they were going to bounce back. That wasn't too far off of that. So, yeah, rough day for the Big Ten. Big day for just – I think the Big 12 looked pretty good as well, even though TCU lost. I think they look like contenders in the Big 12 for sure. Oklahoma and Iowa State had a pretty good game. That game was fun to watch. And lastly, LSU making that statement, that's kind of goes without saying. All right, so that I just kind of went on my rant, talked about today. I'll catch you later. Let's see if Utah can come back here, and see you later.
All right, Bash. Appreciate it. You have a good night. Bash Gaming joining us again tonight to give us his recap on the Big Ten. This is how bad the day was for the Big Ten. Aside from Ohio State, it could be argued that the second best performance turned in by a Big Ten team was Illinois, losing only by 6 points, 25-19 to South Florida, a team that was extremely good, of course, last year, and beat Georgia Tech by 11 last week. That might have been the second best performance out of the Big Ten. It was between the Purdue loss by 3 points at home against Mizzou, Illinois only losing by 6 at home to South Florida. Of course, there were other wins in the Big Ten, but they were expected. And yes, a Big Ten team, regardless of who it is, should not lose to any MAC team. It just shouldn't happen. And Northwestern, they're a program that has had these kind of stumbles. Even when they've had good teams, they have had stumbles against MAC teams. The Big Ten wins 95% of its games against the MAC. So Northwestern, being a slightly upper echelon team in the Big Ten, it should take care of its business against the MAC, but I bet that Northwestern's roughly winning about 7 out of every 10 games against the MAC, and they laid another egg tonight in losing to Akron 32-28. Not an elite MAC team,